With the latest season of JJK getting going with the Shibuya arc finally kicking off, I feel like it's a good time to go over what this season's opening foreshadows to the audience, or at least the manga readers in the audience. Goes without saying, but spoilers ahead as of this point. Obviously. Got things to get out of the way first for this analysis. Will I be taking a look at the OP's lyrics, as this song was seemingly made especially for Jujutsu Kaisen's anime? No. Whilst I have broken down lyrics for some other anime OPs in the past, like Tokyo Ghoul's Unravel, this is due to the fact that personally I believe that Tokyo Ghoul's opening's lyrics are mega tied to the series narrative, due to the fact that the person who wrote the original song, Unravel, was a massive fan of Tokyo Ghoul before even being asked to make an OP, and as a result, the lyrics are a cool deep dive into the character's emotions of Kaneki, which is really cool. I don't feel as if this is the case with My Specialz by King New, I think that's how you pronounce it. The lyrics seem fairly unrelated to JJK on a whole in my opinion, while there are some standout lyrics that I can see being linked to the plot points and the narrative of JJK, especially in Shibuya, such as, of course, Tokyo's front line, the city of excitement, obviously referring to the city of Shibuya itself, or things like, won't you make things chaotic? Seems like something Sukuna would say, or Kenjaku maybe. Overall, the lyrics seem very dissimilar and withdrawn from the visuals, so I won't be covering them here. As a result, we're going to be talking exclusively on the visuals. What do they symbolise? What plot points and character actions are they alluding to that occurred during the Shibuya arc, or maybe even further on? I won't be going over every single shot, however, because there's a lot of stuff going on, so I may miss a couple of things, so feel free to let me know what I missed down below. But with that being said, let's get into it. Actually, before we get into the animation of the OP itself, let's take a look at the cover for the single of this song. Pretty strange looking at it upon first glance. However, if we take a closer look and we look to the right, yeah, pretty cool. Basically, if you can't tell, we have a bunch of fingers being served to this handsome anatomical model, of course referencing Yuji eating Sukuna's fingers. More specifically, if we link it to Shibuya, it's probably referencing Jogo whipping out 10 of said fingers and forcing them down Yuji's unconscious body. Nice touch. It's also seen without the aforementioned fingers during the intro of the My Specialz music video. Now, the actual OP. We are immediately hit with a deep contrast as soon as the first frame of the OP shows up. The glowing dark red colour palette acting as a polar opposite to the previous season 2's opening's bright and lighter blue palette. However, the first shot that I feel is of mention is at the 10-second mark. As the title appears on screen, we get the first real introductory shot of Shibuya, which is pretty much exactly as we saw it in the manga. A nice little street. Hope nothing bad happens to it. We get a couple more shots, mountains of corpses floating, nice little ceremony, and then we get this shot of a bug emerging out of a chrysalis. Yet again, shot for shot from the manga. This shot itself being from the fight between Yuji and Todo versus Mahito. This panel itself is quite blatantly representing Mahito's further evolution and development of the instant spirit body of representing Mahito's further evolution and development of the instant spirit body of What is this name? The instant spirit body of distorted killing form, which to be honest sounds like Minato named it because that's goofy as hell. And in all fairness, the form is pretty whack in my opinion. On a design level, the form completely changes his design from the patchwork cursed spirit to make him look like the Warframe cursed spirit. Kind of throws me off. Shortly after this, we see everyone's third favourite cube, the prison realm. I don't think this shot of the prison realm is from a specific shot of the manga, but just a pretty nice shot of the prison realm, alluding to the fact that Gojo's going to be there for a while. And if you're wondering what the first and second favourite cubes are, they're obviously the Rubik's and Allspark. Prison realm itself is, of course, the cursed object that imprisoned Gojo for over 130 chapters, just for him to eventually get out and do his best Geodude impression. My favourite Gojo. Is he the strongest? Go no. We then get some nice shots of the majority of the roster appearing together. The notable thing about these seemingly nonchalant shots is that they appear to be at Jujutsu Tech. If you look in the background of these shots, we have what appears to be the area where Todo almost smacked the Mahoraga out of Megumi, and we also see this area, which seems to be the training area where we saw Geto give the entire cast of JJK Zero PTSD. Besides Yuta, of course, because he is indeed built different. We then see a happy little disaster curse playing tag with these train passengers and painting the floors and ceilings with them as he proceeds to do so, as well as turning a good few of them into transfigured humans. Not much to say except this shot. In the shot, he seems to be having an absolute blast of a time. This is then followed up with a shot of the disaster curses alongside Kenjaku and Chozo walking up the subway tunnel. This shot doesn't really mirror a specific shot from the manga, but does somewhat sort of act as a precursor to what the hell is going down on the train tracks. I mean, that scuffle with Gojo had the entire subway station looking like the opening of Gantz. As the group are kind of split up before they meet up around Gojo, only 3 of the disaster spirits and Chozo attack Gojo at once. Kenjaku and Dagon are still in the background, so it makes sense that all of the disaster curses and Kenjaku and Chozo are in this shot because they are all in this subway. I mean, granted, Kenjaku and Dagon literally just kind of watch on as Chozo, Jogo and Hanami fight Gojo, whilst Mahito attacks a train car and eventually joins the fight. Which is weird, to be honest, because Dagon seemed genuinely upset about Hanami's death, but he just kind of watched on like a goober. Also, real quick, to everyone who has read Jujutsu Kaisen and recognizes this character, let me explain something real quick. His name is Dagon, not Dagon, or whatever the hell you guys are saying. It's straight from the Lovecraftian story called Dagon, as I explained in this video about the most underrated fight in all of JJK. Anyways, an assortment of finger-sized treats then appear on screen, and we see a roll of 10 fingers that Jogo will eventually feed to Yuji after he is wrecked by my main man Choso. Granted, there's some other fingers that get forced down his throat by these 2 characters who have names that you just don't really remember, Nanako and Mimiko. They existed. Not for long though. We then see kind of a thematic sequel to the previous shot, as the aftermath of all the fingers we saw previously being forced down Yuji's throat. We now see the aftermath of this. We see Yuji standing in front of a cascading wall of graves that he will soon consider himself responsible for, even though it isn't really his fault. Also, I don't really have anywhere else to put this in the script, but here seems to be the most relevant, so here it goes. I've noticed that during this arc, Chozo inadvertently saves Megumi's life. Because if you think about it, if Chozo didn't kick the hell out of his brother and knock him out, Mimiko, Nanako and Jogo wouldn't have forced fingers down his throat. If that didn't happen, Megumi would have died after summoning Maharaga against Haruta, which, I'll say again, is so goofy. Like, it's the biggest form of overkill in the series, to be honest. As I said, if Sukuna didn't take over after ingesting all those fingers, Megumi dies. Or even if Sukuna woke up anyway and just took over because he sensed Megumi was in danger, he said himself, if he was in a weaker state, he probably would have lost against Maharaga. So Chozo may have accidentally saved both Megumi and Yuji by beating the hell out of Yuji, which is pretty funny to me. Anyway, back to the OP. Shortly after this, we get a neat little mural of the disaster curses lit by a single candle. They are depicted here as like classical Oni, and they look pretty dope. However, with the added context of this arc, it's quite ironic and funny to think about, because all of the characters on display here don't even make it out of Shibuya, which is pretty intriguing to think about. Some pretty cool, you could take it as foreshadowing in my opinion. We then get a pretty much straight up copy from the manga. We see a cool little shot of Yuji's brother from another mother kissing his pendant, which contains the 2 most important things in his life, his imaginary whore and all-time bro. What a lad. This panel, of course, being from the fight again between Yuji and Todo versus Mahito. The more I look at this opening, the more I realise how much it refers to this fight specifically, as well as just Mahito. So it's getting me really hyped for the Mahito fight in the future. It's probably going to be a major animation spectacle. But unfortunately, after this fight, Yuji's brother will pass away, just from then to get immediately replaced by a superior brother, Chozo for life. After this, we kind of get a foreboding shot of Ultimate Mechamaru in the distance, chilling, blending with the glowing red colour palette, which is pretty nice on the eyes, but unfortunately is followed up by a shot of Miwa mourning his subsequent death to Mahito. Like, he gets skinned for the first time in his life that doesn't break when it touches sunlight, then immediately dies in a Gurren Lagann sequence, like, R.I.P. Mechamaru. Then we get a shot from the inside of something's mouth. Then it zooms in towards Yuji in the distance, all for him to burn away into becoming Sukuna. There are a couple things to break down here. Firstly, whose mouth is this? I've seen a couple people argue that it might be the grasshopper curse, or if it's some kind of symbolic imagery to represent Yuji eating fingers to become Sukuna. Personally, I'm more privy to believe the latter, more so the former, as the grasshopper curse spirit is such a nothing moment in the entire arc and just showcases Yuji's growth in power, so it can be then juxtaposed later by him losing to Chozo. The fight itself with the grasshopper spirit is pretty minor, so I doubt it's a reference to that. Unlike Yuji being forced out of control of his own body so that Sukuna can run amok for a while. That's a hell of a lot more plot relevant and pivotal, and is much more noteworthy within the entire scope of JJK, so I imagine this shot is more so symbolising that. If you disagree, feel free to let me know what you think this shot represents. This is then followed by Dagon transforming and releasing all the corpses he ate after he decided to binge eat after seeing Hanami die. It's more so a silhouette than a detailed illustration of Dagon, but it's very clearly him due to the fact that we see Maki, Nanami and Naobito being dragged away by the waves, 3 of the main players in the initial fight with Dagon. The only kind of weird thing here is that when Dagon initially releases the corpses in the manga, he does that when he's in his non-released form, when he's still like a cute little guy, not when he's, a Cthulhu clone, but it's kind of a minor detail. Anyway, remember how I said this OP keeps referring back to the Mahito fight? Well, here we get some tight animation of Todo and Yuji switching places with Boogie Woogie whilst they run across Mahito's tendrils, all culminating with Yuji and Mahito face to face. Also in this shot, Yuji throws out a black flash that Mahito parries, referencing the fact that this fight is going to be straight BS. Everyone is just hating the most stupid random crits throughout this entire fight. That's all the black flash is, and all 3 of these dudes just keep landing them. And the only reason Mahito even lost was due to the fact that Yuji just landed another black flash, because Todo did the biggest bait of all time. Still a dope fight though, it was still pretty dope. We then see Jogo screaming like a bat out of hell for obvious reasons, as he's about to fight the King of Curses, and he's probably psyching himself up a bit. Some people may think that this is him dying since he is, surrounded by flames, but his death was so goddamn peaceful and tranquil, I doubt it. My man started crying, he reached inner peace. He's clearly not at peace in this moment. He's being forced into Sukuna's little game, and I wouldn't be happy either if I had to fight a shrapnel bomb that could casually destroy cities. After Jogo's done screaming, we see Choso screaming, this being after his fight with Yuji. As of the recording and writing of this script, that fight should be next week, and I'm hyped as hell to see that. The Raid 2 pose, I'm so hyped for that. You have no idea. The shot in the OP itself is a replication of Choso freaking the hell out that he might have killed his possible brother, since he and those in the Kenjaku fraternity share the ability to kind of sense each other as well as when they're about to die. So when Choso senses that his brother is about to die and that signal is coming from Yuji, he rightfully freaks the hell out. This is then followed by Toji breaking through Dagon's domain, smiling all the while. The one who is truly free. Ooh, that's a nice line. And I do love that Dagon fight. The panel itself is from midway, during Nanami, Naobito, Maki and Megumi struggling against Dagon. Toji just breaks in and waffle stomps him with Playful Cloud. It's a great fight. We then see Kenjaku dropping one of his care spirits to the floor. This specific one is after the fight between Yuji and Mahito is finished. Kenjaku then just kind of mollywops his son for no reason and cuts him up to hell and smothers him in curses before just leaving him. We then see what appears to be Meimei's bird strike, which she used against the smallpox care spirit. Not much to say about that. It wasn't really much of a fight. Meimei it's pretty much just Meimei's only fight, but hey, it was cool while it lasted. We then see our friendly neighbourhood salaryman being engulfed in flames, foreshadowing the fact that he encounters 3 special grades in a row back to back. He fights Dagon, gets blitzed by Jogo, then exploded by Mahito. My man could not catch a goddamn break. Then we get the closest thing to a father-son moment between Megumi and Toji. This shot itself isn't a reference to a specific shot from the manga, from what I can tell. It's just seemingly a shot that is referencing the fight between the two. But still looks really cool. It's a shame that Toji ended himself here. He ruined my favourite cursed tool, then dipped. That cheeky little rascal. Then we get kind of a replication of Nobara's death scene here, as she thinks about her past and thinks of all the empty chairs around her. However, this shot is from above this time, as she is gazing up towards it. Of course, as she is doing this, she is holding the eye that Mahito snuck some C4 into. Man, all of this just comes back to Mahito. He is a straight menace. Following this, we just get a shot of Shoko just being kind of sad. I mean, after the hidden inventory arc, she just kind of was always a bit sad. But I mean, that's understandable because at this point, her yearbook looks like a in memoriam section. And as if in reference to the previous shot, explaining Shoko's misery, we finally see Gojo being entrapped in the prison realm. We will not see him in the anime for like 10 straight years, and that is wild to me. I mean, it took like 120, 130 chapters for him to get back in the manga. I know it's going to be a goddamn long time until he's animated by Mappa. I mean, he'll still show up, of course, sparingly, like when he explains to Yuji how Curse tools work and stuff, but it won't be the same. He's trapped in the cube. Now I get what I personally believe is the coolest shot in the entirety of the OP, as well as the last one of note, really, in my opinion. We get a sequence of some of the most notable hand signs that are used throughout this arc. Kind of looks like a modern Mappa animated water dragon jutsu, to be honest. We start with Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine. Makes sense, because he is, in fact, number one. Just ask Kashimo. Then this is followed by Mahito's Domain, the self-embodiment of perfection, or whatever goofy friggin' name it has. Then Dagon's Domain, the horizon of the captivating Skandha, which is a reference to Buddhism, which is pretty cool, because if we think back to the mural of the disaster curses, Hanami was in like a Buddhist pose, so kind of intriguing. Then we have Jogo's hand sign for a form of his disaster flames that he used against Sukuna. Then we see Chozo's blood manipulation. Not much to say on it. It's cool, and it's a clap, which is ironically followed up by Toro's Boogie Woogie clapping twice, as we then see Megami actually summoning Maharaga successfully for the first time. Thank God. Of course, this then all culminates with Gojo's infinite void as his 6 eyes appear on screen. Then we get the last few shots, which I personally feel have a lot less narrative relevance, IMO. Except maybe this final shot of Yuji. I mean, when you look really closely at the shot, it looks as if Yuji really believes that he is the main character, and that is wild. In conclusion, I love this opening. There are a couple of things that annoy me about it. Like, I just wished the way in which we saw all the events in the OP corresponded with the order in which they happened in the actual plot. I mean, in the OP we see an order of events that couldn't possibly occur if we go by the order of the OP, but that's fine. It's just this cool flashy segment made so specifically for manga readers. I mean, I get it, it was probably done to keep the anime onlys on their toes, but still. It would have been nice if the OP itself had its own narrative and wasn't just fan service for manga readers, but that being said, it is some fine fan service. I ain't gonna complain about it. On top of that, the King News song made for it is a belter, and they've got some bops under their belt too. Anyway, outro time.